Hey everybody, welcome back. It's Josh with Dads in the Dungeon. Today we're going to be going over a couple of things on my Theros realm. And things I wanted to discuss here. This video overall is going to go over how to make a Theros player with me, what that means, what exactly you get as a Theros player, um, and what some of the restrictions and things like that are. As we kick off here, um, I am going to have up on screen here the Mythic Odysseys of Theros. Additionally, I'll be looking down sometimes. I have both my notes here and my actual physical copy of the book. So if it looks like I'm not paying attention, I assure you I'm paying attention to something, and it is relevant. So first and foremost, what I want to kind of talk about is what makes Theros different as a realm. Most all realms in D&D have gods and deities and things of that sort. So what makes Theros so different, and why is this the only campaign you would need to quote unquote choose a god for? Well, that's pretty simple. Theros is sort of a Greek analog story. Theros is also a Magic the Gathering setting that has been ported over to D&D. They did a fantastic book with this source book here. It's got amazing information. The problem is it's never really had any good adventures. Now there's some people out there working on third party things. I know of one gentleman in particular, Drew and Dragons. Give him a look up. He specifically is developing a module, and it's gonna be awesome. I'm in one of his games, and I can only say great things about it. But in choosing these worlds, one of the things that happens is you have to choose a god, and what we're here to talk about is why you would do that. Theros as a realm is a place where the gods aren't just something disconnected from mortals. Uh, in Theros, the gods are something very tangible and real. Uh, Man, how to explain this? So, Afara is the goddess of police. She's essentially the goddess of cities, and she would be represented as such. Now, Meletus, the poli down by the sea, uh, one of the larger polis in Theros, that is her city, and it's frequent. You would frequently walk through Meletus, especially the religious district. They've got like a whole street filled with temples to the gods. Um, if you were to look down that street, it wouldn't be surprising. It would be fantastical, but it wouldn't be surprising to see the goddess Afara. This is her city. She would walk amongst the mortals there. Additionally, Theros is a realm where, alternatively, sometimes you don't necessarily like what the gods choose. Heliod, for instance, is a very arrogant god. He claims himself to be the god of gods. He thinks he sits at the pinnacle of the pantheon. And in doing such, he chooses for himself Theros' most powerful champions. He doesn't care if they like it or not. Request from Heliod will not be refused. That is basically how that runs. And if it were to be refused, no one would know of it because you would simply cease to exist. So Theros is a realm in where the gods themselves play not only a huge role, but they choose champions who are also major political players. They are, I mean, name any and everything, and a champion of a god would have some leverage over anything. Theros is a realm where most normal mortals, they wouldn't choose a single god. Your player characters do because you are chosen as a champion. You are a representative of the god in his name, in his best morals, or goddess, excuse me, her. Um, and why I make a big point of this is because this is one of the games where you get some extras, but you also have to follow some extra rules. There is a piety program that is done through actions and just simple thoughts and simple, oh gosh, what would be the best way to explain it? Simple rituals and I guess I would call them like beyond just daily rituals. Like it becomes it becomes much of a daily chore to worship all the gods for any normal follower. For any normal mortal of Theros, their day, much to the day of anyone, would look like doing various tasks and having to essentially venerate the god of whatever would help them in that moment. That is how each mortal would operate typically, and why you stand out. Now, you stand out because you typically um, were chosen by the god or stood out in some way to earn their favor. Once you earn their favor, you are given what's called a supernatural gift. Now, supernatural gifts in my game are run a little different. I will let you be any single race you ever desire. The big deal with that is if you're not a native to Theros race, then your supernatural gift has to be either Nyxborn or Anvilrod. And the reason being is because it's fairly easy to explain why a strange looking creature that doesn't exist in our realm would be made by a god who can see beyond what mortal eyesight can see. Other than that, there are some really awesome supernatural gifts here, and we'll just go over them really quickly here. So, Anvil Rot, you were forged in the fires of Perforos's forge. Your appearance bears a metallic sheen and visible joints. The Anvil Rot characteristic table suggests details of your life origins. Additionally, you gain the following traits. Now, I typically don't use these tables. I typically like this to be built into your backstory. If it's something that you're really, really hung up on, we definitely can take a look at these tables. Above all else, I'd much rather help you. But again, if for any reason you don't want my help per se, then we can just use one of the simple tables. That's not a problem either. Back to what you get for Anvil Rot. For Anvil Rot, you get constructed resilience. You were created to have remarkable fortitude, represented by the following benefits. You have advantage on saving throws against being poisoned, and you have resistance to poison damage. Additionally, you do not eat, drink, or breathe, and you are immune to disease. You do not need to sleep, and magic cannot put you to sleep. When you take a long rest, you must spend at least 6 hours in an inactive, motionless state. Rather than sleeping in this state, you appear inert, but it doesn't render you unconscious, and you can see and hear as normal. And here's the thing too. Anvil Rot and Nyxborn are not bad. If you were thinking of being a halfling and you still want to be a halfling, additionally, we can take other creative measures too. I've had a player and do have a player who has taken sort of a mutation, sort of. But he took it from his goddess, and now his race technically would be Yanti pureblood, but he is not. In Theros realm, he's considered a mutated human. Okay. So on to the next one. Heroic destiny. Great deeds lie in your future, and it will take extraordinary effort to kill you before you accomplish those deeds. Choose or roll on a random destiny using Heroic Destiny table. Additionally, you gain the following traits. Defy death. You have advantage on all death saving throws. And then hard to kill. When you are reduced to 0 hit points but not killed outright, you can drop to 1 hit point instead. Once you use this trait, you cannot use it again until you finish a long rest. You guys, I cannot tell you how awesome a supernatural gift like Heroic Destiny is. Especially for, think about your martial characters, your paladins, your barbarians, your fighters. Imagine that moment when you're staring down your big bad guy and he knocks you down, but it does nothing because you're able to simply stand back up. Not even get knocked down, you're just reduced to 1 instead. Heroic Destiny, I just cannot say enough great things. Great things about. Next up is Iconoclast. Iconoclast is something that actually most Leonins would be Iconoclast. So if you do choose a Leonin, I will kind of push you towards that. But that being said, if you get creative and you work yourself into Theros, call it whatever you would like. But let's go over what you get from Iconoclast. Your denial of the gods gives you supernatural power to resist their influence in the world. You gain the following traits. You gained enlightened protection. You can cast protection from good, evil, and good with this trait, targeting only yourself and requiring no material components. Once you do so, you can't cast it in this way again until you finish a long rest. Wisdom is your spellcasting ability for this trait. Reject the gods. You cannot gain or lose piety to any god. Instead, gain the following traits as the character level listed in each one. Wisdom is your spellcasting ability for any spell that you cast through these traits. First up is Iconoclast Hero. This is a 5th level trait. You can cast Dispel Magic with this trait. Once you do so, you cannot cast it in this way again until you finish a long rest. Iconoclast Paragon. This is 11th level. You can cast Dispel Evil and Good with this trait, requiring no material components. Once you do so, you can't cast it in this way again until you finish a long rest. In addition, when you cast Dispel Magic using your hero trait, you can cast it as a 4th level spell. And last but not least is the Iconoclast archetype. You can cast Anti-Magic Field, requiring no material components. Once you do so, you can't cast it in this way again until you finish a long rest. In addition, when you cast Dispel Magic, you cast it as a 5th level spell. I've seen Iconoclast played. I've never had any particular draw to it per se, but I've seen other people who've really, really enjoyed that. So don't let this one go without it. And especially if you're a character who doesn't have the time to try and remember to pray and do silly little things, or if you're just acting in a counterproductive way to the way that your god would wish you represented, then maybe Iconoclast might be the way for you to go. But that's really up to you. Next up is Inscrutable. Like a sphinx, you have a mind like a maze, impenetrable to mortal scrutiny. This might be a gift or training from an actual sphinx, the blessing or curse of a god, or an inexplicable talent. You gain the following trait. Psychic Shield, you have resistance to psychic damage. And Sphinx's Shroud. You are immune to any effect that allows creatures to sense your emotions or read your thoughts. Wisdom insight checks made to ascertain your intentions or sincerity have disadvantage. This is good if you're definitely trying to play things close to the vest there. Next up is Lifelong Companion. Behind many heroes is another hero whose greatness comes from the support and love they offer. Haktos had his beloved Pyrenees, Renata was accompanied by her servant Carados, and Siona sailed with her devoted crew. Like these partners, you are great and make others great. Consider the companion relationships table when determining your legendary connection. Any relationships with another player's character requires that player's consent. Additionally, you gain the following traits. Your boon aura. Allies within 5 foot of you have advantage on saving throws against being frightened, charmed, provided you aren't incapacitated. And Companion's Protection. When a creature you see within 5 foot of you is hit by an attack roll, you can use your reaction to cause the attack to hit you instead. Once you've used this trait, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. Next up is Nyxborn. Born from the minds of gods, the creatures that populate the gods' realm are called Nyxborn. Nyxborn creatures resemble mortal beings, but philosophers debate their true character. Are they idealized forms of mortal beings, free from imperfections and transience that causes mortals to suffer and die? Or are they hollow and soulless shades, lacking the authenticity and pathos that make mortal existence worthwhile? A Nyxborn is like a fragment of divinity, an idea or a dream that is incarnate. You embody an idea like the way leaves turn towards the sun, or the feeling of ocean sand between the toes, the way the heart stirs when the tide of battle changes, or the sadness that lingers when remembering a happy moment of childhood. These ideas, dreams, memories, and feelings are the stuff Nyx is made of, and Nyxborn is shaped from that raw material. You might have been specifically crafted by one of the gods to serve a certain purpose, or your existence could be an accident caused by a confluence of supernatural forces. The Nyxborn origin table offers a handful of suggestions that might explain how you came to be, and the Nyxborn quirks table adds some special effects that might linger around your person. Additionally, you gain the following traits. Cloak of Stars. As an action, wrap yourself in a starry cloak, appearing like a silhouetted form of the night sky. When you do, attack rolls have disadvantage against you. This cloak lasts for 1 minute until you doff it. No action required, or until you die. Once you use this trait, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. Nyxborn Resistance. You have resistant to necrotic and radiant damage. Nyxborn is really, really awesome. I particularly really love Nyxborn. Not only does it give you a really fun way to come up with a backstory, but additionally, it's something that, you know, I don't want to call it OP because it's not OP, but getting 2 resistances and additionally you get the Cloak of Stars, that's pretty awesome. I mean, it's essentially a rare item and 2 resistances right out the gate, with just a supernatural gift. I really love Nyxborn, and I cannot say how awesome it is. Next up, a lot of people find Oracle boring. I'm just going to give you that heads up front. Oracles in my game, I want to make more fun. I'm not quite sure on how to do that exactly yet. What I will say is if you have a good idea and you want to bring it to me, I am more than willing to hear it out, if not implement it, if we're being honest. I know that it's kind of meh, but it's also something that, especially in this campaign, I can't oversell it enough. To be able to talk to the gods, uh, it's pretty awesome. But let's go over what it is. You possess a precious gift coveted not just by mortals, but by the gods themselves, the gift of clear communication between the mortal and divine realms. As an oracle, you can perceive the whims of gods and petition them for glimpses of their vast insight. This gift also comes with a curse, though, which typically takes the form of dire insights. Consult the oracle curse table to determine what unwanted revelations you receive. The gods seek mortal oracles to act as their agents. As a result, most oracles devote themselves to the service of a single god and learn to ignore the voices of all others. Occasionally, two gods agree to share the service of an oracle. Oracle who try to remain independent often find themselves pursued by the agents of evil gods who would bind them to the god's service if necessary. You gain the following traits: ears of the oracle. You can speak, read, and write celestial, the language of the gods. In addition, a god might deliver a message through you, and you can decide whether to use your own voice or allow the god's voice to come through your mouth and deliver the message, translated into any language you speak. Oracle's insight. The god gives you flashes of insight that help you bring your efforts to fruition. When you make an ability check, you can roll a d10 and add the number rolled to the check. You can wait until after you roll the d20 before deciding to add the d10, but you must decide before the DM says whether the roll succeeds or fails. Once you use this trait, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. Oracle's piety. Your oracular abilities improve as your piety score increases. Instead of gaining piety benefits associated with any god, as described in Chapter 2, you gain the following traits when you've reached a specified piety score. The first one, the Oracle trait, you can cast Augury as a ritual with this trait. Once you do so, you can't cast it in this way again until you finish a long rest. Seer, you can cast Divination as a ritual with this trait. Once you do so, you can't cast it in this way again until you finish a long rest. Sibyl, you can cast Commune as a ritual with this. Once you do so, you can't cast it in this way again until you finish a long rest. You also can't be surprised, provided provided you aren't incapacitated. And Divine Oracle, you increase your wisdom or intelligence score by 2, as well as increasing your maximum for the chosen score by 2. Next up is Pious. Pious also kind of is not awesome, if we're being honest. It's not awesome. I would like to make it better. That being said, I will normally, if anybody chooses that, we'll normally sit down and have a conversation on how it looks better for their character. All right. Last but not least is Unscarred. Like the great hero Haktos, you are resistant to physical harm. Using the Unscarred origin table to determine how you gained your legendary invulnerability. Additionally, you gain the following trait: Unscarred Resilience. When you take damage, you can use a reaction to roll a d12, add your con modifier to the number rolled, and reduce the damage by that total. After you use this trait, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. That... Oh, excuse me. That is a really good trait. I know it sounds meh, but if you use it right and use it often, that really pays off in the end, especially if you're a barbarian, a fighter, paladin, any kind of frontliner that's going to see some serious scratch right away. What else can we go over right away on these gifts? I don't think we really have to go over too much more. But what I do want to go over now is the gods themselves. and some ideas on cleric domain. Additionally, this will tell you what their alignment is, so this kind of gives you a good idea. Oh, excuse me, I don't know why I'm yawning so much. This will give you a good idea of what the god is about, but also what your life as a champion or cleric to that god would be. Um, Again, this isn't all written in stone, but what I will tell you is, for my game, I I really don't see a way that we could work you in as the Erebos god of the dead. I don't think that works. He is theoretically, we do follow after the Theros godsend story in this. Um, the sun is going away. Right now, you've only seen, for the last 5 days, you've only seen cloud covered skies. The god of the sun is trapped by Erebos in the underworld. Um, I understand completely that Erebos does not have to be a bad guy. Um, he really doesn't. I do believe in a world um, where the god of the sun isn't trapped in the underworld. I do believe there's a way that Erebos could be spun as a good guy in a campaign. Now, that being said, if you have a really good idea, please by all means bring it to the table. I'm never going to harp on you for bringing any kind of good idea to the table. And even if it's not the perfect idea, it doesn't need to be anything like that. If you have a good idea, we can talk it through. But what I'm telling you is out of 99% of the time, Erebos is going to be off of the table. What I can tell you other than that is pretty much 100% of the time, you're going to see Mogus off the table. Again, you could surprise me. You could show me something really neat that I haven't seen before. We could talk about something really neat that we haven't gone over before. But just off of the roll tables or anything like that, without you doing some serious work to try and ingrain yourself, um, it's gonna it's gonna be pretty damn impossible. And the reason why I say that, Mogus is the god of slaughter. Now, this is a team based game that you play with other people. When you think about a party of good people trying to save someone from their tomb in the underworld, a god of slaughter doesn't offer a whole lot that brings a party together. Um, Again, you could surprise me. We could have a whole discussion, and tomorrow I could have an Erebos and a Mogus follower on my game. 100%. I don't discount that at all. What I'm saying, though, is out of 100 times, 99 of them are, you're never going to play those two gods at my table. Any other gods, we can 100% spin. You can 100% see how they can work. I mean, the cleric domains are right here listed. It kind of gives you a good idea of what you're looking at for the gods. And we can just go over that really quickly here. I'm trying not to make super long videos for you guys. This one will be a little bit longer than the other ones. I do apologize. First up, we have Aetherios, the god of passage. Aetherios' job is to bring mortals across the river that rings the world to the actual underworld. Um, He is a god that I have seen spun in a very positive fashion many times. In fact, I've seen some of the most creatively kind characters come from Aetherios worship. Um, Next up is going to be Ifara. She's the god of Polis, knowledge, light, uh, any kind of any kind of art, any kind of human creation is going to pretty much fall under Ifara's rule. artists, anything of the sort. Many bards are probably actually going to fall under Afara. Yeah, and that's pretty much that. Erebos, again, we've talked about him. Heliod. Now, here's a couple of things I want to touch on. Despite the fact that Heliod, the god himself, is trapped in the underworld, does not mean that he would not have champions on the top realm. Additionally, like I said, Heliod is a god known for taking what he wants. If you were a person that he really wanted, odds are you're his champion. And you may not like that at all. That being said, it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, he chose it. Now, I would really, really encourage someone to really take up Heliod, a story where we can go and fight for your god. That really gives not only our party but you specifically a real reason and a motivation on why you're doing something like this. And it could be a heck of a lot of fun. Next up is Iroas, the god of victory. Um, Very much so, think of your prototypical paladin. Um, Iroas, he is the the patron champion of Akros. Akros very much so reveres Iroas. They believe Iroas worship has kept them safe from the Minotaurs collapsing down on their cities. But additionally, it's also been phenomenal architecture. Um, Akros itself is a well defended fortress. So it's not all his doing. That being said, though, Iroas is a really awesome god to play. Um, Really, really fun. Lots of role play to come out of that. Every time you guys win a battle, you can devote it to your god in the most creative ways, and fun things like that are how, as a DM, I get to reward you. So let's move on here. Next up is going to be Karametra, god of harvest. Additionally to being the god of harvest, she is the god of mothers. She is kind of the god of life, the god of giving. If there were a goddess of love, she would probably be it, but these are very much so like primal forms of gods still. So, whereas the typical Greek pantheon was divided a little more into human like traits and abilities, this one seems to be a little more primal. There's much more nature at play and things like that. So I would imagine Karametra to sort of be your god of love or goddess of love, but at the same time, she's a little like in her early days, Karametra required blood sacrifices in her name and stuff. So she's not completely clean and caring and nurturing, to say the least. But that's true of all these gods and goddesses. All these gods and goddesses very much so still have mortal like feelings. Like I said, Heliod is very, very arrogant. Many of these gods don't like Heliod for the way he acts and the way he treats other gods. It creates a situation where, gosh, you know, oftentimes Heliod's arrogance really can shine through and rub a person the wrong way, really put an abrasive side towards another. But the flip side of that is Heliod being the god of the sun and the god of the sun being so revered because everybody uses the sun for everything. He is phenomenally powerful. Um, so the reality of that is while he pisses you off, you also don't want him on the other team. And that's kind of the deal with a lot of these gods and goddesses. They all have their upsides, they all have their downsides. Piss them off. It's not a good world to live in. Please them, and you're showered with gifts and favor. Um, okay, so now we're on to Keranos. Keranos is the god of storms. If you've ever, and I say this earnestly because I have played a Tempest cleric to Keranos, and it's one of the most fun things I've ever done in my entire life. So thematic, so much role play there. It's a lot of fun. But if you ever wanted to live out your dream of pretending to be Thor, here it is, guys. Be Thor. That's literally it. Say that you like Keranos, choose Tempest Cleric. I promise you the rest of your campaign is going to be phenomenally fun. You cannot regret it to any extent. Additionally, though, Keranos is the god of wisdom, the god of insight, and the wrath of storms. So think of him as the most reserved, but also one of the most intelligent gods that's out there. Really, him and Perforos, I would say, are really neck and neck. Phoenix probably gets up there as well, but I still have to say though, Keranos would probably on wits alone would probably blow all of them out of the water. Next up is two gods of a different cut, sort of. So while all the other gods are very fickle and they exhibit many human-like traits, very, very often, in fact. These two particular gods and goddesses really don't. Both of them have pretty serious jobs, and they take their job really serious. These two gods are very much so. They're all business. There's no Clothis followers who have a mullet, if that tells you anything. I know, a joke. Same thing with Krufix, but let's break them down a little bit. So essentially, Theros lore pretty much states that Clothis and Krufix were some of the earliest gods to come about. Krufix set the horizon and built Nyx, and Clothis set the destiny of many mortals, of all the mortals, really. Clothis is the god of destiny. She is the goddess of destiny. Her hair is said to be the weave of destiny itself. Whereas Krufix is much like a Nyx sky. In fact, let's take a quick look here. This is a picture of Krufix, basically just Nyx. Complete Nyx. He is a four-armed being, hooded being. That is pretty much what you see and what you ever really know of Krufix. Krufix, very much so, is a god who does his job to a T. And Clothis, much the same. Goddess of destiny, again, her hair. Her hair is said to be the weave of destiny itself. Back up here. Okay, so back to the fun ones here. Again, Mogus next is the god of slaughter. Mogus and Iroas, interestingly enough, so there's lore that said that Iroas and Mogus were once one god who split being because it couldn't stand. It couldn't stand its love for victory, but it also couldn't love its it couldn't love its feast of slaughter. Excuse me, I don't know why that took so long to spit out there. Um, this is pretty much it. I mean, Mogus has spent many years knocking on Akros's door. Um, it's been something that he looks to conquer. It's his greatest wish is to conquer Akros one day, sort of. Just a not awesome guy, basically. Long story short. Um, Next up is Nylea. Nylea is the goddess of the hunt. Nylea is the bow lady that you see in the beginning. Or if you've watched my intro video, or not the intro video, but the like commercial video, she's in that beginning frame. Nylea is very much so our god of the hunt, god of the woods, god of nature. She is happy when beasts would trample a village and return it back to its former glory of the woods. She is pretty much the exact inverse of what Afara is. Everything you would do to make Afara happy is going to directly piss Nylea off. It kind of just goes hand in hand. It is something that is understood between the goddesses. They don't particularly harangue each other for it, but it is a point of contention nonetheless. Next up is Farika, the goddess of afflictions and cures. So all of these gods are not only the god of the thing that they are, but typically the inverse. So Farika, the god of affliction, is also the goddess of cures. She has all of the greatest cures. She knows all of the recipes for any potions, for anything like that. This very much so is that person. Luckily, right now in my Theros game, we have a main character essentially, Demecto, who is our champion to Varika. Excuse me. Next up is Phoenix, the god of deception. Phoenix is one of the only mortals to ascend the pantheon. Nobody really knows the true story, but it is said that Phoenix was once a mortal who ascended into the pantheon. I haven't had a lot of players play a Phoenix. I'm sure it could be pretty dang fun. Much like a Perforos god could be pretty dang fun. Both of them. Phoenix, especially, though, is fairly quiet throughout all the stories. It would be really fun to give him some pop. Maybe that's what your player will bring. Who knows? Perforos, god of the forge. That's pretty straightforward. Anything to be made or has been made, that's pretty much his territory. Additionally, any constructs, anything like that, they're all going to sort of belong to Perforos. And then last but not least, we're going to have Thassa, goddess of the sea. She is, I mean, she's exactly that, the goddess of the sea. There's a lot of secrets to her. There's a lot of really cool things about her. I think we could make some really cool characters about that. Now that we've gone over the gods, there's just a couple of things I want to leave you with to think about before I leave you here for the day. First and foremost, something I want to talk about is with my Theros game right now, I don't take it off the table that one god couldn't venerate two champions, or two champions couldn't venerate one god. what what I would say is I really like to steer clear of that stuff because when it comes time to reward people, if you're the same god or goddess as someone else, you're going to expect the same rewards. And in Theros, that's not how it goes. If you spend every single session just saying to me verbally that you're praying for your god and you're doing all the things that you should be and you're playing your character as you should be, your gods are going to reward you. But the reason I don't like having double gods is because again, if you're Nylea, the god of the hunt, and then the rogue also wants to be a champion of Nylea, the god of the hunt, because they both have bows. Um, well, it brings us to a problem because both characters are going to act differently, and both are going to venerate the god or goddess differently. Um, so what I would tell you is try and pick a character and make a character that's going to be not only unique from anyone else's god, but that also gives us a really fun chance to have you be that god's favorite, to have you be that god's right hand, essentially. Um, it really makes for a very awesome game. Last thing, we've talked about it a little bit so far, but the piety. So you earn your piety from your God by simply doing the things that they appreciate. So let's go look at a god here. Afara, god of the police. This will tell you what her influence is, what her goals are. Um, but additionally, it's also going to tell you what worshiping her looks like. Um, Earning and losing piety. So, if your character is doing this stuff every single game, and I take notes of it, um, I 100% promise you, your gods are going to reward you. If you are pushing if you're pushing their work, their life's goal, they're definitely going to be happy with what you're doing. So when you're building a character, not only pick out what the character is going to venerate as far as a god, but also choose how you're going to venerate it. Choose something. I mean, come to me with a great idea, and I would love to make all of it work. I think it's so awesome. I think we can really do some really, really cool things here. Before I send you guys on your way today, I do just want to go over a couple of things. Um, Demecto, as I mentioned earlier, one of the characters in Theros here, has really brought to the table some really awesome things. And so, one thing I would also like to ask of you, especially in this Theros game here, um, please reach out. We're going to likely have at least a session zero, if not maybe two. Um, and what I want from that is to establish everyone's character, get some backstory stuff knocked out. That way we feel like we've actually been through it. But additionally, especially in Theros here, we are all making characters that are so deeply ingrained into the world that they're going to have connections to each other. Reach out to your other players. Not only make a connection to your god or goddess, to your area in Theros, but man, make a connection to your fellow players. Like I said before, this game is a cooperative. We are all playing this together, including me. Um, so let's make sure we all have a fun time. Let's make sure we're creating awesome characters that I have a blast writing adventures for. Um, and I hope to see you in our game here. My Theros games run Fridays at I am Mountain Standard time. So my games run Fridays at 6 p.m. Oh, excuse me. I think I just fibbed to you because I think it's actually 5. Let me just double check here. Yep, I am a doorknob. I'm looking at the wrong schedule. So my Theros game runs Fridays at 5. We have some other games as well. We've got Fandelver's in below. We've got Princes of the Apocalypse. We're working on getting a Planescape out. Additionally, Dusk is about to be announcing his game, if not games. We'll see what all comes of that. I've got fingers crossed for a couple of them, but I know he's also busy as well. But yeah, we'd love to have you Fridays. Reach out to me if you have any questions, concerns, anything like that. And as always, we look forward to seeing you guys next time. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.